otu nwoke anwụọla n'ime onunu ebe ọ gara ịchụpụta ọgọdọ nwanyị nke dakpuru n'ime ya. David Hundeyin nakwa George Galloway agbakọrịtago ajụjụ ọnụ n'onwe ha. Ngwa gezie ntị ka ị nụrụ ka ya nwaba ife si wee mee. Mmiri ama n'ehi n'anya n'obodo Kano steeti ebe otu nwoke a na-akpọ Ụma Ayọba bụ onye nke gbara afọ 37 abụrụgo onye nke nwụrụ anwụ n'ime onunu egwutere aka. Nke a mere na mgbede ụbọchị Tuzdee 19 nke ọnwa Septemba anyị nọ n'ime ya. Ọnụ nke na-ekwuru Kano steeti Alhaji Saminu Abdullahi bụ onye mere ka anyị mata ihe mberede nke a. Mere ka anyị mata na akpọkuru onye nke nwụrụ anwụ ka ọ gbatara ha ọsọ enyemaka n'ịgụpụta ọgọdọ nwanyị gbasara n'ilo nke ikuku tụbanyere n'ime onunu egwuru. Ụma were obiọma ya ma gbakute ha ma rikpunye na ya bụ ime onunu ahụ egwutere aka ka o were wepụta ọgọdọ ahụ nke dakpunyere n'ime ya, mana ikuku ọbụla adịghị n'ime onunu ahụ egwuru, nke ndị oyibo na-akpọ oxygen. Ọ bụ ya mere na okuteghị ume o wee wụrụ onye nwụrụ anwụ. Ogbu onye akpa ntị were na-ajụzi kedu ụdị ọgọdọ bụ ihe ahụ nke a ga-eji were duna nwoke mmadụ mmụọ n'ike. Ọgọdọ ahụ a gara ịchịpụta eji ọlaọcha ka ọ bụ ọlaedo ka eji wee kwa ya. Ejizi m ohere a were na-adọ onye ọbụla aka na ntị gbasara ụdị enyemaka nke ị na-enyere ndị mmadụ. Tụlee nke ọma ka ị mara na ọ bụ ihe nke ị ga-emenwu ka ọ bụ nke ị gaghị emenwu, isi ha mba n'udo dị. Ka mkpụrụ obi Ụma zuru ike na ndokwa. Amen. Otu nwoke a na-akpọ David Hundeyin bụ onye ama ama n'ihe gbasara nta akụkọ nke a na-akpọ journalism n'olu ndị iti. Enwela mkparịta ụka, ya bụ ajụjụ ọnụ n'etiti ya na onye ọcha nke amakwa ama nke ọma n'ihe gbasara nta akụkọ a na-akpọ David Galloway. Ha abụọ ezukọtara n'ihu akwụkwọ onyonyo nke a na-akpọ TV werezie bọọ Tinubu nakwa ndị ụlọ ikpe Tribunal ike n'ilu mba ụwa niile. David Hundeyin bụ onye nke nọrọ ụjọ dịka edoro mkpụrụ akwụ kwuru sị na ikpe nke ndị Tribunal kpere na-akọwa na onye ọbụla nke mere ihe ọjọọ ma kwupụta na ya amaghị ụma were mee ya nwawa ihe ọjọọ, mara na a ga-agbaghara ya onye n'ụlọ ikpe nke Naịjirịa. Dịka o sikwa kwuo n'ịma atụ na ọ bụrụ na iburu egbe gaa gbagbuo mmadụ akpụpụta gị n'ụlọ ikpe nke Naịjirịa, sọ naanị ihe ị ga-agwa ha bụ na ọ bụghị gị gbagburu onye ahụ, kama na ọ bụ egbe nke dị gị n'aka bụ nke gbagburu onye ahụ. Ị mara na ụlọ ikpe Naịjirịa ga-alapụ gị maka na ọ bụghị gị gburu ya, ọ bụ egbe nke dị n'aka gị gburu ya. Akụkọ dị otu a were bụrụzie ihe kpatara ọnọdụ nke ndị Naịjirịa ga-anọ n'ugbu a n'ihi ihe ndị Tribunal mere iji wee hụ na ha kpuchitere njọ otu onye. Na-atụpụghị oge ụnụ, ngwa kirizie ya nwabụ ihe onyonyo ka ịhụ ka ha nwa si kwuo ya n'ọnụ ha, maka na Igbo hụ n'anya, Igbo ekwele.
David Hundeyin joins us here again on the mother of all talk shows. Well, all eyes were on the judiciary, David. How did it work out?
Not very well, because as is now abundantly clear, the judiciary, as it's generously referred to, signaled to the world and to Nigeria specifically that even the letter of the law, the Nigerian Constitution itself, is essentially a series of suggestions that basically, in the interest of protecting the status quo, the judiciary will essentially make up rules that don't exist on the fly. They will nitpick technicalities which make very little sense to anyone, both within and outside the system. And they will basically work their way back from a predetermined answer to basically to arrive at a series of contrived questions. And the only purpose of doing all of this is to subvert justice. So what is abundantly clear now is that even going forward, even after this inevitably goes to the Supreme Court, the outcome isn't going to be any different, because the Nigerian judiciary has made a mockery of itself. To the rulings that was given, for example, was that the vice presidential candidate, who was actually not eligible to run because he had been registered as a contestant for another political office concurrently, which is illegal. The ruling given was that, well, as long he didn't do it intentionally, so it's fine. So essentially, now what that means is the maxim which any lawyer anywhere in the world is raised with, which is that ignorance is no excuse under the law, has for the first time been turned on its head in Nigeria by the appeal court. So essentially, as I said, if I shoot a bunch of people dead in the streets in front of a TV camera, my argument in court can be I didn't do it intentionally, so I'm free to go. Another ruling that was given was that, well, the drug dealing forfeiture, the entity involved was the president's bank accounts and not the president's person. So the president's bank accounts forfeited the money.
That's the one. That one actually made me laugh out loud. The judges said that the money that was forfeited was a criminal, not the person who had the money in his bank account. In other words, it was these naughty $460,000 that are deserved of condemnation, not the person who had them resting in his account. To continue your analogy, you could claim that all these people you shot were not shot by you, they were shot by the gun.
Exactly. And apparently that would fly, because that's the depth that we sunk to in the year 2023. So at this point, I think it's become clear now that if we're hoping for any kind of redemption from within the Nigerian system, it's probably not going to happen. At this point, I think it's the Nigerian people themselves, if they had any fight at all left in them, that have to look at what their contemporaries across the border in Niger have done and basically make up their minds. Are we going to consent to be mocked in this manner permanently, or are we going to do something and stand up for ourselves? Currently, there's a sort of mass paralysis sort of going around, where everyone is like, oh, if we go out, they're going to shoot us dead in the streets, which they did 3 years ago. There's going to be a massacre and blah, blah, blah. And, you shouldn't be sitting in the UK, wherever you are, telling people to go out on the streets. Why don't you come home and lead the protest yourself? Which, I mean, I've done that already before. But anyway, apparently I'm expected to come back and, to do that again. And generally, it just seems to me as if, I think until the people themselves decide that they have had enough, this mockery is going to continue, because clearly Tinubu himself has no intention of letting go. He clearly has no iota of shame, personal embarrassment, anything like that. He genuinely doesn't care. And the judiciary has also made it clear that they are just as shameless as he is. So essentially, the entire Nigerian establishment has made it very clear that it lacks a single modicum of shame, that is willing to do anything in public. I mean, if you watch the proceedings, you'd have seen toward the end, there was I think the only female justice on the panel. She actually she raised her voice and went into a rant and was screaming at the petitioners and essentially berating them for bringing up the petition, and was basically saying things like, did you think that threats from social media would move us to give another judgment? And it was almost as if Tinubu himself was speaking to the petitioners, and this is a judge. So it's become clear that the Nigerian system, if there is no Nigerian system, it's been completely captured. So the Nigerian people themselves at this point need to decide if they're going to consent to be led by their inferiors, or if they're going to do something about it. Ultimately, I don't think there's it's a decision for a journalist or for a politician like Peter Obi to make. I think it's the Nigerian people themselves who have to make that decision.
Unu ahụgo ma nụrụkwa ka ya nwewa ihe si wee gaa. Anyị jizi ohere a were na-ekene David Hundeyin nakwa George Galloway na mbọ ha gbara ikwupụtara anyị ihe dị otu a. Ejizi m ohere a were na-ajụ gị nwa onye na-ege m ntị, kedu ihe ị chere banyere okwu ndị a niile ị nụrụ taa? Depụta ya na comment section. Ọ gwụla ka ọ ha anyị n'ọnụ. Echefukwana ibinyere anyị aka n'ebe edere subscribe. O nweghị ego gị ga-apụ, kama ọ ga-abụ mgbe ọbụla anyị wepụtara ihe onyonyo ka ị soro na onye izizi ga-afụ ya. Gbakwa mbọ hụ na ị tụsara ozi a ka o rute nwanne gị ma onye ọbụla. Udo dịrị ụnụ.